castles possess a certain magic that draws in modern travelers. The soaring structures and bountiful gardens of royal dwellings allow us to revisit those worlds of our childhood bedtime stories. Around the world, palaces and castles play a compelling role in telling the rich history of a region. Their fabled halls and sky-high towers reveal the triumphs and tragedies of their rulers. In addition, they provide in-depth architectural lessons thanks to their ornate and timeless designs. From royal residences and grand retreats for the incredibly wealthy of days gone by, these gorgeous palaces all have one thing in common. No expense has been spared when building and decorating these jaw-dropping structures. Some castles were raised to be the tallest and largest, while others were designed to embody the personalities of their rulers. They were used as royal residences, strategic fortifications, and sheer symbols of wealth. Today, such castles aren't merely relics of a bygone era. They bring a unique flavor and charisma to the landscapes and communities around them. Particularly in Europe, you'll find that a castle is often the centerpiece of the old town. Beautiful castles also invoke our curiosity, making us ponder what life must have been like for those who amassed such extraordinary wealth. Similar to how people keep up with the rich and famous today, people share an affinity for the kings, queens, and lords who once lived high on the hog in the world's ultimate estates. Castles are like a window into a fairy tale land from once upon a time. While most magnificent castles are in Europe, there are plenty of others sprawled around the globe. Here's a list of the most beautiful castles in the world. Bran Castle, Romania. Bran Castle is a 13th century fortress that majestically looms over a steep cliff. The castle's dramatic architecture conjures up an image of Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula, hence its nickname, Dracula's Castle. It's undoubtedly the most famous and iconic castle in Romania. Bran Castle lies along the border of Transylvania and Wallachia in central Romania. It's about 100 miles north of Romania's capital, Bucharest. Neuschwanstein Castle, Germany. Neuschwanstein Castle was built in the 19th century by King Ludwig II of Bavaria, also known as the Mad King. As mad as he may have been, his eccentric lifestyle and imagination certainly gave rise to the archetypal fairy tale castle. The Castle of Neuschwanstein sits atop a rugged hill with its blue turrets and white limestone facade. It's so magnificent that it inspired Walt Disney's Cinderella Castle. Neuschwanstein Castle is tucked away in Schwangau, Bavaria, which straddles the Germany-Austria border. It's approximately 68 miles southwest of Munich. Edinburgh Castle, Scotland. Edinburgh Castle is a 12th century fortress in the heart of Scotland's capital. It's one of the most iconic and Instagrammable places in the UK. It's also the most visited paid attraction in the country, attracting over 2 million visitors each year. Humming with rich history, Edinburgh Castle and the Old Town are listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Alhambra, Spain. The Alhambra in Granada is a hilltop fortress that's undoubtedly one of the most Instagrammable places in Spain. This castle-turned-royal palace is a magnificent display of Islamic art and architecture brought to Spain by the Moors during the Middle Ages. Its intricate architecture and lush gardens make the Alhambra one of the most beautiful castles in Europe and the world. The Alhambra is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that epitomizes Spain's diverse cultural heritage. It's also one of the top tourist attractions in the country. Château de Chambord, France. As far as French castles and royal palaces go, this is among the most breathtaking. Château de Chambord is an over-the-top estate that embodies Europe's finest royalty and excess. This 16th century royal palace, designed in the French and classical Renaissance styles, is the largest chateau in France's Loire Valley. Though distinct from the medieval castles of Europe, it is aptly fortified with bastion towers and a nifty moat. Château de Chambord is 10 miles east of Blois and 105 miles south of Paris. Windsor Castle, England. Built nearly a millennium ago, Windsor Castle is the largest and oldest occupied castle in the world. This royal residence is Queen Elizabeth's preferred weekend retreat, where she hosts state events for public figures from around the world. Inside this massive castle complex, you'll also find St. George's Chapel, a sacred site for royal ceremonies, weddings, and burials. Windsor Castle towers over the Old Town just south of the River Thames. It's conveniently located 30 miles from London and 10 miles from London Heathrow Airport. Eltz Castle, Germany. This medieval castle looks like it's something out of fairy tale. Built in the 12th century, Eltz Castle is one of Germany's most magnificent castles. This imposing structure has 100 rooms and 8 floors. Despite its age, This Romanesque and Gothic castle is remarkably well preserved. Ult's castle is 90 miles west of Frankfurt and 68 miles south of Cologne, Germany. Tourbillon Castle, Switzerland. Built during the 13th and 14th centuries, Tourbillon Castle is one of the most beautiful castles in the world. This fairy-tale castle proudly stands atop a hill overlooking the Swiss countryside. The breathtaking views are well worth the strenuous uphill climb. Hohensalzburg Fortress, Austria. Located in the heart of Salzburg, one of Europe's most beautiful cities, lies the Hohensalzburg Fortress. Built between 1077 and 1519, the Hohensalzburg Fortress is one of the largest medieval castles in all of Europe. It's perched 1,660 feet above the Old Town, offering sweeping views of the Austrian countryside. The Hohensalzburg Fortress is the centerpiece of Salzburg's Old Town, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Osaka Castle, Japan. The most beautiful castles in the world aren't just exclusive to Europe. Japan boasts some impressive castles of its own, most notably the 16th century Osaka Castle. This 5-story fortress is surrounded by stone walls and a moat, which acted as a defensive shield for the revered ruler who lived there, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. It becomes particularly photogenic during cherry blossom season in early April. Osaka Castle is 32 miles southwest of Kyoto and 22 miles east of Kobe, Japan. Winden Castle, Luxembourg. With only 590,000 people, Luxembourg is often overshadowed by its Benelux neighbors, namely Belgium and the Netherlands. However, Luxembourg makes up for its small size with its grandiose castles. Built between the 11th and 14th centuries, Winden Castle is one of the largest castles from the Roman and Gothic periods in Europe. Garnering only 200,000 visitors each year, Winden Castle is an under-the-radar attraction that deserves a slice of the limelight. Winden Castle is 29 miles north of Luxembourg City. National Palace of Pina, Portugal. Nestled near the shores of the Portuguese Riviera is the National Palace of Pina. This flamboyant 19th century castle is among the top attractions in Portugal. The palace is so mesmerizing that it's even considered one of the 7 wonders of Portugal. The National Palace of Pina looks out on the city of Sintra, just 17 miles west of Lisbon. De Haar Castle, Netherlands. Comprising 200 rooms and 30 bathrooms, De Haar Castle is the largest castle in the Netherlands. This neo-Gothic castle was built in the 19th century to embody the glorious fortresses of medieval times. De Haar Castle in Utrecht is just a half-hour drive south of Amsterdam. Prague Castle, Czech Republic. Built in the 9th century, Prague Castle is a Romanesque and Gothic masterpiece that embodies Prague's timeless charm. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, Prague Castle is the largest coherent castle complex in the world. Overlooking the Vltava River, this massive and seemingly ancient castle is one of the most iconic structures in Prague. Prague Castle and the city's historic center are a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Kylemore Abbey, Ireland. This is one of the most beautiful castles in the world, and definitely a top tourist attraction in Ireland. Though a Benedictine monastery today, Kylemore Abbey was originally built as a castle and private residence. Dating back to the Victorian era, this castle had 33 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and pretty much all the modern amenities of the day. Kylemore Abbey is 47 miles northwest of Galway and 173 miles west of Dublin. Citadel of Cape Bay in Alexandria, Egypt. Construction of this austere fortress on the Mediterranean Sea began in 1477 after Sultan al-Ashraf Cape Bay learned of Ottoman troops advancing toward Alexandria. The castle plans were cleverly laid out on the ruins of the fallen pharaoh's lighthouse, where workers could salvage pieces of the previous structure to build red granite columns in the mosque and entrance. Eventually, the Ottoman Empire captured Egypt, but the citadel still functioned as a military fort until the British bombardment of 1882. The imposing and stunning structure was left neglected on the harbor for nearly a century until the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities stepped in to rebuild it to its original glory. Since the revolution of 1952, the citadel has functioned as a maritime museum, detailing the victories and losses of Egyptian naval troops. Nakhal Fort in Nakhal, Oman. Upon first glance at the magnificent fortress above Oman's Batna Plain, you may notice its rather irregular shape. The original structure of the Nakhal Fort, which predates the Islamic era, was built around a large boulder at the foot of Mount Nakhal, causing it to look a bit imperfect. The fort was built as a way to protect nearby trade routes from any looters or attacks, and grew to include its own mosque, residential spaces, and reception halls. Not to be overlooked are the odder additions, like the hidden nooks where soldiers would dump hot date juice on invaders. Most days, the fort operates as a museum with historic artifacts. But if you happen to visit on a Friday, you'll be greeted by friendly goats at the weekly market held within its walls. We hope you've enjoyed this video of the best and most beautiful castles in the world. Hopefully, this video introduced you to some new places that weren't on your radar and has inspired you to visit these unique castles around the world. Happy travels!